Hey everyone, Abbey Clancy here, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Exhibit A. Today's episode is all about transformation, resilience, and mastering success. We're bringing you a masterclass in motivation from some of the biggest names in business and personal growth. Imagine hearing firsthand how to build an empire from YouTube genius Calfreezy, how to create true wealth beyond money from happiness expert Mo Gawdat, and how to face down the toughest challenges in business from the incredible Michelle Kennedy, founder of Peanut. But that's not all. We've also got a powerhouse message from the legendary Robin Sharma, breaking down the 7 kinds of wealth you never knew you needed. We'll dive deep into everything from overcoming imposter syndrome to balancing happiness with success and why true fulfillment comes from more than just financial gain. If you've ever felt stuck, uninspired, or wondered how the most successful people turn their dreams into reality, then this episode is for you. Get ready, take notes, because this episode is packed with insights you can apply to your own life and career. So grab a cup of coffee, find a quiet spot, and let's jump right into today's masterclass in success. You won't want to miss a second of this. You talk about gratitude a lot, and I think that's one thing as human beings we don't do enough of. We're never present. We're always rushing around, busy. You've got to be here, there, everywhere. And, it's not often we stop and be grateful and think, oh my God, what a gorgeous day. And look at my kids, hearing their laughter, hearing the birds sing. And, it's definitely something we need to, be more thoughtful about and, practicing gratitude.
It is so interesting when you say this because, the truth is, first of all, gratitude is the mother of all happiness, right? But it's also the mother of all truth. Like I normally tell people if you're stuck in traffic and complaining about it, okay, you're complaining about the negative side of the issue, right? But the positive side of the issue is that you're in a car. That car is not in a war zone, right? You're safe enough, probably fed enough to be able to complain about an issue that is so trivial. I call it, problems of privilege, right? I went to Ethiopia once. I went to Ethiopia many times, but I went to Ethiopia once. And I had a few business meetings. I don't know if you've ever been, but you land in Addis Ababa. And, I landed at around 1 a.m. in the morning. So it was dark everywhere. I get to one of the most luxurious hotels in Africa, right? Gold everywhere. And it's, just so fancy. I don't know, partners and customers come over to the hotel in the morning. We had the conference, the conference is done by 5 p.m. And I go out of that hotel, right? Complaining about all of the, the lengthy day and the arguments we had with the clients and all of this and that and so on. And then the minute you walk out of that hotel, it's slums everywhere. Tin houses, okay, where people barely have enough to eat. And then, our partner there basically said, let me take you on top of the mountains, the cleanest air in Africa. Yes, let's go. So we're having a conversation in the car. And next to me, I feel something passing by me, right? I'm looking at my partner, not looking at the window. There's like some big thing passing by us every 2 to 3 minutes, right? So I looked and I asked, what is this? Turns out this is a woman somewhere between age 10 and 65 who is completely bent under the weight of a massive pile of wood, okay? Where those women wake up in the morning, every morning at sunrise, they walk up the mountain, okay, to collect, dry wood, wrap it up in a pile, I promise you, that probably is 4 meters long, this 1 meter thick, okay? And then they walk down the mountain under the weight of that thing to deliver it to the workshops to use as fuel for their work, right? And they take $1 for that 9 or 10 hours of work, okay? And then they take that $1, they go buy food, go back home, cook for their families, cook for their assholish husbands that haven't worked the whole day, okay? They basically feed them, and they're not allowed to eat until the family has stopped eating, and then they eat what's left. And I'm like, what? How horrible can life become? And yet we complain about the traffic. In reality, if you take context of our life, honestly, everyone should be running around screaming from gratitude all the time. Right? Like if you look at every bit of your life, if you're just by definition born in the UK, you're more blessed than 90% of the world, right? If you're born in the UK and you have enough to eat and a roof on top of your head and a device to be able to watch this conversation from, you're luckier than 98% of the world. And yet we take the 2% and we focus on it. Why? Because our brain is a survival mechanism. It's supposed to look for what's wrong so that it can deal with it and survive rather than what's right. And so my practice is very straightforward. Every time my brain will tell me something negative, I'll say, okay, interesting. Yes, we're stuck in traffic. What is positive about this? What's positive is we're in a car. It's air conditioned. We're going to an important meeting. Someone is interested in us. Okay. We're fed. We're safe. It's not a war zone. It's not, and you can go on for hours about everything that you can be grateful for. If you do that, suddenly life becomes a lot happier, not because it changed in any ways, but because you notice the reality of what it is.
Who was your inspiration then?
There really wasn't anybody so at the time when I wanted to make those gaming videos, there's a Swedish gamer called Tabe, right? And in my eyes, he was the coolest bloke.
Okay.
Even to this day, I think if I were to meet him, I would be like, oh wow. He stopped making videos a while back. But as a kid, that was my inspiration. But that kind of died out maybe 2 years after doing it.
Okay.
Because there was nobody that had
no
really
one else
done
doing
it.
it.
Yeah, so it was hard. There was no blueprint. There was no like, this is how you do it. Whereas now there is quite like a clear path that you can take and you can see how to build things out. I mean, now it's, you have like gurus and analysts about YouTube. It's like a whole different beast. Back then.
How much do you rely on analytics versus your gut?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I think you have to take some... This is such a boring answer, but it's like you kind of have to take both into account. But if you were to ask me, like if I was just to go off of one thing for the rest of my career, I'd go off the gut for sure.
Yeah.
Because 9 out of 10 times that's right. But what I'll do is I'll make a decision based on my gut and then find analytics to be like, right, okay, how can I make that work?
Yeah.
And that's usually how I'll do it, because sometimes, and not take this back to football, but a lot of footballers have unbelievable stats, but we call it like the eye test. You watch them and they're shit. So you know that the stats are lying to an extent. Like everything can be manipulated to look good on paper. And just depending what stats you want to use to back up your idea.
Your first paycheck.
Yes.
For content creating, what was that?
It was like £200, and that was only because it was the minimum that they would pay out. So it actually took me, I was getting like £50 a month, like £80 a month, and they would only pay out when it went over the £200 limit.
Yeah.
So I remember just getting like 202p or something like that. And I was like, oh wow, this is cool.
But at that point, did you realize did you know this was gonna be your career based on the money side of things? Are you like, if I keep going, this is gonna keep going up and up and up and up?
No, at that time, no. The moment where I thought it was gonna be a career of mine was when I got that £2,000 check. And I was just there. This sounds so strange, right? But I never even really thought about much. My brain was just like, I'm just keep doing this. Whatever it is, it's just kind of working and I'm having loads of fun doing this. And I never even really thought about the money side of things.
Yeah.
I never even really thought about how can I get more views or how can I do, I just made videos.
Yeah.
And I think looking back on it, I'm so glad I did that, because it's easy to get caught up in all of that and really start focusing on that. But for me, it was like, just make videos. And if it works, it works. And this was one thing that I'm very grateful that both my parents always said to me, and I was very privileged that this was the case, is they said, look, if it goes tits up, you can just come back home.
I think that's interesting, because when I don't know why I keep referring to Pete all the time in this actually, but it's like when he was a little boy, he wanted to play football. That's all he wanted, to play football, not because, you could buy a mansion or you'd be getting £100,000 a week or whatever. It was just because he wanted to play. And I think, when you start doing things for the money, that's when it can start to go tits up. It's almost like the money is the icing on the cake.
And I think it's as well, it all sounds like quite cliche, but it's one of those, if you are doing something that you're actually passionate about, then none of that stuff actually really matters because you're just enjoying doing it. Like, yes, okay, it's nice. I've earned a bit more money this month or whatever. Like, all that stuff's great. But when your priority shifts from enjoying making it to how can I rinse this for everything it's worth, then I think that becomes a big problem. And I mean, you see that across pretty much all walks of life, whether it be sports, business,
agreed.
anything.
So do you think for anyone listening who is thinking of following in your footsteps, can you still make a significant amount of money, or is it harder because the market is so saturated?
Yeah, people ask this question quite a lot, and I think I mean, like I said, there's so many benefits to being there early. You don't have to be as creative. You don't have to be as savvy. Like, you can make way more mistakes. It is more difficult now. The reward is much higher than it was back then.
Yeah.
And when you do, quote unquote, make it, whatever that might be to you, whatever that success looks like, there is a lot of money on the other side. Is it possible? Yeah, for sure. Is it more difficult? Of course, there's more people there. But truly, if you are making good content that is different, and I always say this, don't look at other people for inspiration, but you have to do your own thing. Yeah. If you're not going to do your own thing, you're just not going to break through the noise. There's so much noise now, unless you're doing something slightly different. And it doesn't have to be like something mega. It can be something small. As long as you're doing that, that'll help you break through the noise.
I haven't met a master who wasn't a perfectionist. I just have to be honest with you.
And are they happy?
Well, no, but their game isn't happiness.
Yeah.
Their game. So when I mentor the elite athletes, when I mentor the world-class business builders, entertainment royalty, are they happy? Mostly no. But their game isn't happiness. The elite athletes, for example, or the super entrepreneurs, they're not interested in happiness. They are interested in mastery. And so I think about Michelangelo, 4 years to create the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. I don't think Michelangelo was interested in happiness. I think he wanted to push beauty and magic into the world. I don't know if Steve Jobs was happy, but I don't think his game was happiness. His game was world class. And
people must think when you are mentoring these people, billionaires, CEOs, elite athletes, surely they've got it all. Why do they need your help? They're rich. They've got everything from our point of view, kind of thing.
That's exactly what the Wealth Money Can't Buy is all about. They're rich of money and material things, but many of them have poverty of peace, joyfulness, family connections, purpose. Many of these people suffer from imposter syndrome. They have what looks like everything, and people look up to them and put them on pedestals, and they just feel they don't deserve it. They have deservability issues.
Where does that come from?
Well, okay, where does it come from? Well, I think wherever you go, there you are. That's the Zen proverb. So if you're insecure at the beginning, you'll be insecure on the mountaintop. And so I think the point really is, again, I want to be really clear, the fifth form of wealth in the book is money. There's nothing wrong with money. There's nothing wrong with nice things. Personally, I'd rather stay in a nice hotel room than a flea bag hotel. So there's nothing, right? So it's the fifth form of wealth. There's 25 chapters on how the billionaires do it, and I've deconstructed their mindsets and habits, etc. But there are a lot of rich people, and money is all they have. And so what I'm really trying to do with this book is remind people there are 7 other forms of wealth that when we feed them, we find we are not only successful in the world, we're successful with ourselves. I mean, what's the point of getting to the last hour of your last day? And you survey how you've lived, and you say, wow, I was successful in the world. I did what society said I should do. I made a fair amount of money. I got lots of social media likes. I won the race the world told me to win. and I'm completely empty.
Yes.
I mean, Leo Tolstoy wrote a short story called The Death of Ivan Ilyich. Ivan Ilyich got to the end of his life and he said, what if my whole life was a lie?
Oh, God.
It's pretty, to me, that's the definition of heartbreak. You get to the end of your life and you say, wow, I lived my neighbor's life, not my life.
Yeah. I love how in the book you talk about eating your last supper today. Can you talk me through that?
Well, I think as human beings, we are a species of great postponers. We fall into a cognitive trap of thinking we have all the time in the world when even the longest life is a very short ride. And before we know it, even the longest living person will be dust in an urn on a mantle next to some football trophies over a fireplace. And so that chapter, Eat Your Last Supper First, is an idea to connect you to your mortality and remind you of the shortness of life. Ask yourself, what do I want as my last supper? And eat it today. But the larger point is remind yourself that life is short. And so, okay, you want to do something? Don't worry so much about rejection. Don't hold back the love you want to give. Don't hold back being the person that you want to be. Because, society often says, well, don't talk about mortality. It's negative. I actually think talking about mortality is super positive. Because once you really realize that life is short and your days are numbered, you live to the point. You don't fool around with your phone. You don't spend time with people who bring you down. You don't dabble in trivial pursuits. If I'm lucky, I'm very healthy. Yet, Abbey, if I'm lucky, I have 25 summers. This is my 25 summers decision matrix. When I think about an opportunity or how I'm spending my days or I receive an invitation, I ask myself, okay, I have 25 summers left.
That is so scary, isn't it, when you think of it like that?
25 summers. Imagine it, or you have 30 summers or 40 Christmases. That's, I think, a great way to look at life. And then you say, my time is short. I better do the things that are most important to me versus saying, oh, I'll do it, in some idealized future when I have more time and the kids are older.
Yeah. My dad and husband are my dad lives like a simple life and he is the happiest man literally on the planet. He gets up, he does like a 5-mile walk, then he comes back, has some lunch, potters about, meets his friend, has a pint, goes home, has his dinner, watch TV and goes to bed. And he does that every day. And he's like, if I died tomorrow, I've got such a happy life. I've had such a happy life. And the same with my husband. He was like, if I died tomorrow, I've had a great life. I don't feel that way. And that kind of, that no regrets kind of thing, or, I've accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish. And I think recognizes that makes you change how you live each day and you want to better yourself.
I think, you've said a few things that are already germinating within me. First of all, I think it was so wonderful what you said about your husband, that when I talked about the 10,000 dinners rule, you said, I'd like to spend $1 million. I mean, that's
true.
It's extraordinarily special and inspiring for me. And the second thing you said about your father, which makes the point, which is simplicity is one of the richest forms of life. And then the third thing that I'm hearing you saying that's really, I'm gonna really consider it over tonight and over the next few days, but I think that's profound, which is if you say, if I checked out tomorrow, I've lived a great life, that's rich.
That is super rich.
That's super rich.
Super rich.
What a great way to ask yourself, am I living my truest life and my finest life?
We did not raise revenue for a very long time because we were building the product, we were investing in the community, because we had to build the tech and the infrastructure because of the unknowns. You don't know what you don't know. So we had a lot of work to do in terms of building that. And that takes time and that takes learning and that takes iteration. Get it wrong, do it again, get it wrong, do it again. And so it's not the same for every business, but definitely my advice would always be, if you are building a company, wherever you can, make sure that you are driving revenue from day one, even if it's a small amount. can build.
So if one of our listeners has got £1,000 of their savings, what are the first steps they should do?
Right. Well, the first thing is you need to validate whether you've got a business that you're building for yourself or whether it's a business that other people
We'll buy into.
will use. Yeah. And whatever that might be. So other people might be another business. You might be building like B2B, or other people might be a consumer facing market. But is it a business?
Yeah.
And the only way to test that is to start having interviews, conversations. I interviewed 200 women before I launched Peanut.
So what, are you just going out and speaking to random people?
I'd get one woman to introduce me to another and get me to introduce me to another.
Wow.
And so I would ask her all these questions, and you get all of the feelings about whether they'd use it. Are they interested? Are they skeptical? Which bits don't they like?
Did they come back?
All of that. And so you have to keep doing that. So that's how I started. I asked every single, and then I'd speak with her, can you introduce me to another? By the end of that process, when we came to launch, I had 200 women who would definitely download Peanut on launch.
Wow.
If no one else did,
Didn't you have
those 200 women
450,000
monthlies.
in the first week?
Yeah. It was
That is
crazy.
nuts.
As much as it was really challenging to launch at that time, it was also really exciting because there wasn't anything else. No one was talking about these issues. So I think it was really helpful that we could tell our story. Storytelling is a huge part of any business. And we could tell our story and people wanted to get behind it. You have to be a really bad person to not love Peanut, right? Like, that makes you just fundamentally not nice. So it was easy for people to get behind the concept of, women want support, they need each other. And so people would want to tell our story, and we were able to really
Spread the word.
go from there.
Yeah.
But it is astonishing how many people I meet who have a business idea and I'm like, what's your route to market? Don't know. It's the most important thing. There are thousands of apps released to the App Store every single day.
Yeah.
There are thousands of businesses launched every single month, and most will fail. And so how are you going to make sure that people know who you are? How are you going to make sure that people download your app? How are you going to make sure that people want to engage with your product? And almost you have to start there, because if you don't have that, it's going to be really hard. You might build the most stunning, beautiful product for an audience of one.
Yeah. And is it important to have a perfect exit plan when you go into these investors? Because obviously, ultimately, they want their money back. As you say, it's not a donation.
Yeah.
So
it's a return.
Yeah,
They want a multiple.
your exit plan has to be as strong as your pitch.
Totally. You want to know, whatever you're valuing the business at today, what's it going to be worth in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years is usually the cycle. But what are you building towards, and what are you looking to get to? And that means that, yes, you need to understand, is this a company that's going to go public? Is this a company that's going to be acquired? What does that look like? Who else is in the market? Who's analogous? What are the other examples that you've seen? Are you the next Facebook? Like, what is that journey? And at this point, no one knows. You're all dreaming, but you have to have the dream.
Have a big dream.
Because otherwise you don't know what you're driving towards if you're just, building out there. And by the way, some businesses are not suitable for investment, will be an amazing lifestyle business, and they will never have that exit in that like very big multiple exit. And that's also totally fine and okay.
Yeah.
The art is knowing which one you've built.
Which one you are. So how much did you raise for the investment on your app?
In total, we've raised 23 million to
Wow.
date.
That is insane.
Thank you.
So you've got your investment, you've created the app. How do you bring it to market and make money? Because Peanut is free to join.
Yeah. We're free to use, free to join. And when we first started, that was intentional, right? It was always a focus that we are going to make sure that we build the community, that we make sure that we have this engaged user base, that the product is beautiful. We've spent a lot of time behind the scenes, a lot of what you don't see on safety and security, to make sure that we are really optimized for that. So we do a lot.
Yeah, gosh, I just thought about that.
Yeah, AI before it was cool in AI. Peanut has lots of our own large language models where we're thinking about the type of content that you see, the type of people that you see. We're predicting the likelihood of you being a good or a bad actor. So we do a lot of work behind the scenes to try and protect the authenticity and the safety of the community. That takes time. You have to build it, iterate. And that also takes, a tech infrastructure and investment that you need. So that was always the focus.
But how do you make money?
So now we had to turn on monetization. And I'm going to tell you, when I first told investors this is how I wanted to monetize, everyone was like, no. Not many people really understand how a dating app makes money, actually. So you think in your head that it's, but you subscribe per month. Yeah, but for what? So if you think about all of the apps that we use that are free to use and free to join, there is a premium version of that product that you pay in order to get something. So on Peanut, you can pay to accelerate your experience in the app. We're busy, we've got busy lives. So if you want to accelerate the way to find those friends, find that connection, you can pay, increase your visibility, improve and enhance your filters of who you'll see. You can pay small amounts in order to unlock these features. And you can do that on a weekly, on a monthly, on a yearly, on a lifetime basis. So that was the kind of starting point. That's how we're going to monetize. And that has been amazingly successful. Of course, it's how I know how to monetize. It's what I've built before, so I understand it.
Because of that, was that easy? Did you find it was easier in some ways to get the investment because you'd been an integral part of 2 major apps beforehand?
Of course. It's much easier for me to go and talk about what I'm going to build and the experience that I've had based on what I've built before. Of course. However, it's astonishing how many people don't really understand what that business looks like and how they work. And secondly, this was in a completely different field. You know, the first thing people would say is, why don't you do another dating app? You're really good at dating. You know, and so I had to do a new sell on that. But yes, from a monetization perspective, I had 2 very, very good examples of how it worked and how well it worked. So that part was kind of an easy part. And then the second part is, how do I bring value to users who are never going to pay? Not every user will pay. But there are people who will always engage in Peanut. They will always be there. How do we make sure that they are enjoying their experience and get value from the product in a different way? And so we work with brand partners. That might be a government agency, that might be a public health organization in the US, where it's value add to the users and the users get a value and an experience from that, and where it makes sense in the context. Maybe it's a new product that comes out, and we'll tell our users about it. So it's sharing that, but not in a let me follow you around the internet way, just in a way of these are brands where we know that they have value to our user base. We have so much understanding of who our women are, where they are, what she's interested in. It's not about changing how we view her or what she views in Peanut. It's about how do we add value to her experience.
That constant negativity is a skill that we learn in the world, right? That constant stress that we live through is not because of the events of life. It's because of the way we deal with them.
But how easy is it for just a normal, average person to just walk away from their job? You know, you had one of the most powerful jobs on the planet, working with Google X. You know, you've come from more of a privileged position than most, and which has enabled you to go off and write this book on how to be unstressable.
Yes, I mean, look, it's definitely not without doubt, right? But it also pays off to know what you want in life, okay? And I think we humans, we come in 2 varieties. We all experience the exact same things, especially those who go to success, right? I write in Solve for Happy, and you know, sort of I'm still ashamed of that moment in my life. But there was a moment in my life where I was frustrated and stressed. I went into eBay Motors in the US, and I bought 2 Rolls Royces, right? Literally 2 clicks, 15 minutes apart, bought 2 Rolls Royces, right? Classic Rolls Royces, you know, not the most expensive new ones, but still 2 Rolls Royces, not one, with a click, no inspection, nothing, don't care, right? They arrived, 2 beautiful cars. They arrived, you know, 2.5 months later, right? I looked at them. I was like, oh, that's so pretty. I sat inside them. I started one of them. I drove around for 10 minutes and that was it. Why? Because when you sit inside the car, what do you see? You see the road. The truth of the matter is that if the car is good enough, which now is every car that's ever produced, is good enough, okay? The rest of the car is ego. You understand this, huh? And for some of us, what ends up happening is you buy the first car, it makes you happy for a day, and then, you know, you run out of that dopamine because it's not happiness. It's actually sort of the reward hormone in your body. Look at me, I've achieved, I bought a Ferrari. And then it doesn't give you happiness anymore. So you tell yourself, oh, it's because I don't like Ferraris. I want a Lamborghini. And then you buy a Lamborghini, and what happens is the Lamborghini makes you happy for 2 hours. And then you say, no, it's because it's not green. I need green. So you buy a green Lamborghini. To me, the truth is there was a moment in my life where I actually learned from all of my experiences that material wealth will never make you happy. that the only way, believe it or not, in my view, and I could be wrong, but the only way material wealth could make me happy is if I used it to make someone else happy. Okay? Because all of my needs are met. All of my needs, and my needs are actually not that big at all. It's a simple T-shirt and a good conversation with someone that I love, and a reasonably healthy meal, not in a very fancy place. Fancy actually annoys the hell out of me. Like, why do I need a butler to just sit on top of my head? I don't like that. Okay, I want to have a person that I love, that we can laugh together and exchange thoughts together. It's wonderful. Okay, and once you get to that space, suddenly you realize something incredible, that you're trading the most valuable asset you've ever been given, which is your life, okay, for things that you don't need, which are cars and fancy clothes and connections to people that are obnoxious. And, it's quite interesting. The biggest asset you get is minutes. That's what you have. And we all sell those minutes to our employers or to our, work environment, or to money in some way or another, okay? And forget that the minutes are much more valuable than the money. And once you get that realization, you start to tell yourself, look, I actually do need to continue to sell some of my minutes for money, but how many am I willing to give away, okay? And for how much? And then suddenly everything changes, right? And I have to say, if you've read my second book, Scary Smart, there was a very, very, very significant wake-up call for me. Because when I joined Google, I joined in end of 2007. Sorry, end of 2006, beginning of 2007. We were truly making the world a better place. Like if you think of what I did to take Google to 4 billion more people, imagine the democracy of knowledge and information that brought to the world. That's a beautiful contribution to the world. But technology is no longer fulfilling that promise. Technology today is causing as much harm, if not more harm, than the good that it brings. And there is a moment in your life where you go like, look, I joined this ride because I believed it was doing well for the world. Is this in line with my morality today?
Guys, if you felt inspired and motivated by this episode, please leave me a comment below.